So I have a question for you. How does this really work? Think about the numbers again. There are literally tens of millions of people with heart disease in a poor country like India. Indians, unfortunately, for people of Indian origin like me, are genetically predisposed to heart disease. So particularly Indian males tend to get heart disease at relatively early ages. That, coupled with the poverty and lack of general availability of medical care, means that the number of people who need cardiac care of all sorts, including cardiac surgery, is truly enormous. So you need to provide a model that is able to treat lots of people very fast, consistently high quality, since it's a life and death situation, at extremely low price points. How do you make this work? And remember the numbers. Ultimately, you want a break-even price for cardiac surgery of under $2,000, which is what has been achieved at the hospital. The benchmark price in the United States, which admittedly is not the best outlier to compare to, but is the most egregious in some ways, let's just say is $100,000. So you really want to be significantly better than anything that's been achieved in the developed world. It stands to reason that you have to try to do something quite different. When you look at a country like India with so many poor people, the first thing that you notice, of course, is the sheer number. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of patients have to file through these hospitals. So you want a model that ultimately turns the potential disadvantage of scale into an advantage. That's really the key insight. Davy's own inspiration for this comes from a combination of unlikely circumstances. The first of these, I would say, is the sheer empathy of the man, the person, the humanist, the entrepreneur with a social conscience, which is the idea that there is an ethos of charity that has to be communicated in the hospital setting. And his inspiration for this is Mother Teresa, with whom he happened to work in Calcutta before the mother died some years ago, and was already a legend, I suppose, before she died, but became even more legendary in some sense. So that's where the charity element comes in. The second is an unlikely bedfellow of Mother Teresa. It's Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. Who would have thought? But the idea was very simple, which is to say that if you stand in a simple Walmart parking lot and you see tens of thousands of cars coming through and everybody's going in and doing essentially the same thing, buying a basket of everyday items at low prices, why can't we think of heart surgery in that way? That everybody comes in, everybody needs it. It's a basic package of services. You quickly determine what somebody needs. You provide it at a consistent, high quality, and because of the sheer scale, you charge low prices for it, and everybody's on their way. Now, this is not entirely a new idea. The notion of a focused healthcare factory has been around for some time. There are lots of hospitals in this country that specialize in orthopedics. There are lots of hospitals in this country, United States, specialize in hernia repair. There's a very famous case in India, in Madurai, another southern city, a temple city in southern India, where the Arvind Eye Hospital provides cataract surgeries to hundreds of thousands of people every year at low prices. So the model itself is not particularly new. What I think is perhaps new and interesting is the fact that this is on the cutting edge of science, and that the price points that have been achieved for a tertiary complex set of procedures is so incredibly low. The first thing that all my students say to me when I ask them, what's the hallmark of this model? Of course, they say scale. And so a question that I would ask is, why does scale matter so much? Think about it. Well, there are several reasons. Scale matters because you can take any fixed cost that you have in the system, whether it's fixed cost of equipment, such as hospital facilities, or particular diagnostic equipment, or surgical equipment, or x-ray machines, or imaging equipment, and you can amortize it over a very large volume. In other words, the per unit cost of particular things is reduced to a very manageable number when you have hundreds of thousands of patients filing through. So the sheer spreading of the fixed costs of equipment across a large number of people lowers the per unit cost. Very simple, no rocket science here. That also applies to human capital. Just like we think of physical capital, we have the cost of the surgeon, the cost of the radiologist, the cost of the nurses, and so on. And one of the things that's a bit different about this model compared to the model in the United States is that the medical staff are paid fixed salaries. They're not paid per procedure, so they're not intrinsically incentivized to go and do something extra just for the extra buck. They just get a flat salary, and don't get me wrong, they're paid very well, they're very, very comfortable, but they work hard. And the cost of the surgeon and the cost of the medical team is also spread across large numbers of people. So that's another amortization of a fixed cost that works out very well.